Welcome to another edition of Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris, and each week we have people who have achieved incredible things, who have had challenges, who have had obstacles, but also who have made breakthroughs to do fantastic things. And so today we have a good friend, William Adams. William, welcome to Success Talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I tell you, man, the more I learn about you, you are truly making waves. You are doing some serious stuff on so many fronts, and I appreciate the efforts.
I'm just trying to, pay it forward, as it were. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, a little about your background, man. I know you have a unique background. Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get started on this journey called life?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, a little tiny speck of a town called Placentia, which is nestled somewhere between Anaheim and Los Angeles. And, just a poor black kid, not poor, we weren't poor, but a black kid growing up in a Mexican neighborhood in the shadow of Rockwell International and orange and strawberry fields. So my playmates were, oftentimes their families were migrant workers from Mexico. And when I went to school, their parents were working as engineers at Rockwell International. So my father was a typewriter repairman. He fought in World War II at a very young age. My mom was a school teacher who ended up working for Orange County as an administrator. And I just got started in computers. My father passed away when I was 7. But he was, I think that sparked my earliest interest in machinery. This was before we had computers, right? We didn't have personal computers. This is the late 60s, early 70s. And eventually, when I was about 12, an uncle of mine gave me a personal computer. At the time, it was called a Commodore PET.
Yes.
Which predates the Apple stuff.
Yes.
By a couple of years. But that was my first computer, and I was probably the only kid on my block that had a computer at that time, But my uncle worked for the military, and he so happened to have this computer. He said, "Here you go."
Wow. Wow.
So I was lucky in that I was that kind of precocious kid who was just like, left to my own devices. I'd play with my erector set and chemistry set and physics and all that sort of stuff. And then go outside and play with the kids doing baseball, football, and all the rest. So
now, were you an only child?
No, I had a brother and sister. I still have a brother and sister. They're older than me, so I was the youngest.
Okay.
The smartest, of course.
Yeah. Well, when you talked about the erector set, I was an only child. And so I learned to play by myself, and the erector set, the Lionel train, and my mother even put in a Bunsen burner, because I was in.
So all that kind of, so we have similar history. It's like had all those precocious kids. Like, what do you do with this kid so he doesn't go out and burn down the house? So
well, I actually did. I didn't burn it down, but I set fire to the curtains in the kitchen.
I did something similar to something in our bathroom. So we must be brothers.
Yeah.
Luckily, the house did not burn down.
Right. Yeah. And I tried to pretend it didn't happen. And my dad came in, and my dad said, "What's that smell?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Oh no. Burnt toast? I don't know.
Yeah, man. I tell you. But
so that was the early start.
Yeah. Well, William, I don't know if kids do that now. Everybody seems to have their head on the phone but that type of hand stuff and building stuff. Yeah.
It's critical. I mean, I have a couple of young ones now, and we fight mightily to keep them out of the computer. I mean, they have to use computers because that's just the way of the world.
Yes.
But I'm constantly giving my son Lego sets, Lego robotics. It's like, keep your hands busy.
Yes.
Because you got to learn certain things by being physical. You can't just do it all in your head.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there's another level of learning that almost kinesthetic learning. I watch the guys do the Rubik's Cube, and once they get it, it's like their hands already
Muscle
know how
memory.
to. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And when you have that head in the phone, and you miss that. I don't know that you can get it at all, and you
Yeah.
never know how it impacts the rest of your whole thought system.
Yeah, and I try to not think like, oh my God, computers are gonna rot your brain. We're going to hell in a handbasket. Because
Mhm.
when I was younger, they said that about rock music, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, these kids are listening to this rock music.
Yes, yes,
Society is going to be destroyed, and it's like,
yes,
yeah, every
yeah.
age has its thing, but
And
I
then
think there is a difference between digital and physical.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, when you said the Commodore, I mean, our careers are so parallel. I started in the early 60s working as a key punch operator.
Hmm.
And in those days, a computer took up the whole floor.
Yeah.
And one of my jobs, eventually, I was working at a bank, and they were trying to develop the computer order system. They had not done that yet. And I think it was the Commodore 6400. The Commodore was like way ahead of
Hmm.
IBM, but IBM had the better sales force. And
Yeah.
so IBM was selling a product that they really did not have the software for. Was it the Model 360 or something that
Oh,
was,
their mainframe or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so they were trying to jump out ahead of Commodore, and Commodore was really making serious inroads into the securities industry.
Hmm.
And so we were working for a bank and trying to develop a parallel system to the trading program, and you know, got kind of smart there for a while. If the orders come to me before they go to the trading floor, why don't?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, which was
Hmm.
kind of interesting. Yeah, yeah, we made some money in those days, and I guess nobody thought about it. I guess it wouldn't be inside, or nobody told us. It's just that was how the system worked, to try
Yeah.
to run this parallel system. But yeah, it's amazing, man. Very similar backgrounds. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just a few years behind you, but yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up on the personal computer stuff and really dove into that as it rose. So
Yeah.
that's my start. Um, I eventually went off to UC Berkeley and started a company with my brother in 1984. 84, yeah,
Hmm.
84 was when we started this company called Atomation, and we were doing custom software development. We did a lot of stuff with Steve Jobs, earliest days of this company called Next Computers that he'd done,
Hmm.
and then just various things like that.
Wow.
Eventually, by 1998, I went off to Microsoft,
Okay.
where I spent 24 years until last September.
Mm.
So that's my career in a nutshell.
So you've really been at the foreground of some of the changes of the development of the whole computer industry. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, at
Wow.
least from the personal computer era onward, right? I
Yeah.
missed the whole mainframe era. That was before
Yeah.
my time, but
Yeah. Yeah.
everything personal computer up to, the cell phone supercomputers we carry in our pockets today.
Yes.
I
Yes.
saw
Yes.
all of that evolution and actually was an active participant in driving some of it.
Wow. Wow. Well, I feel like a dinosaur, man. When we were with in heavy in the computing area, I had a job with Time Magazine, and when they had the old the mag tape,
Hmm.
and you had the big sort machines, you had a room to sort stuff. You had a room full of big machines, and
Yeah.
people were putting the big mag tapes on it, and yeah, I was really from the punch card through the mag tape, and then the random access devices, the disc.
Yeah.
So yeah, at that point though, I think I went off. I went into programming, but not with a lot of seriousness. It was a great thing, but I ended up becoming a writer and doing some other things. But man, you were right in there in the middle of it now. So when you were, developing in this area, did you have any real blocks, any things that sort of kept you from moving to the next level, or was the trip pretty smooth?
Um, I would say both. There are blocks and there were blocks and there's still blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's always obstacles for anybody who wants to do anything, right? Now there's societal blocks. Like we actually had discriminatory things that existed in society just like we do today, but they weren't front and foremost for us. We just said, well, I can't control whether they're going to redline us and prevent us from getting loans or any of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
All I can do is write my software and push that out there and get customers.
Yeah.
And based on the quality of the work that we do. And that's been true throughout my career. So I've never led with a discriminatory foot saying, well, you know, if I don't get this, it's because of this block.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't get this, try something else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so yeah, there's always been blocks. And I've always, what I've done in my career is come up with strategies for, to allow me to focus, right? It's like, well, I have a life creed, for example. Like, why do I do anything? Right? How do I live? You know, and my life creed is learning, intentional, fearless, and empathetic. Those 4 words, life, is what drives me. So I say, well, I'm all about learning. So no matter what happens, whether it's a car accident or I earn $1 million, there's something to be learned in that situation. Intentional is I don't walk through life blowing in the wind. I walk through life daily saying, what am I doing today? Why?
Yes.
It's intentional, right? Fearless is not foolish, it's fearless. Like, I'm not gonna go jump out of an airplane without a parachute. That's just dumb.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna be afraid to be confronted with the truths. Hey, brother, it's time you hang up your programming, you know, keyboard because you ain't got it anymore. You know, it's like, I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
You know, and empathetic is, I have empathy for my fellow man, and that's what drives me to do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
Because without empathy, it's like, why should I help you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
So I find that having a focus and then having a mission, like I'm on a mission to help my tribe, my Black tribe, get an equity share of technology. That's my mission. So
wow,
that drives me forward, and all the other stuff is just distractions.
Distractions. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Now you said something interesting. You know, empathy, learning, intentional, fearless, empathetic. Now, you know, I look at this whole thing with the AI.
Yeah.
Now that's one thing. I don't know if they can program empathy. In other words.
Yeah, exactly. There's 2 things. There's 2 key things we have to do in programming these AIs, or we're doomed as a species. That's empathy and desire. Those are 2 things. Right? Because if you can't program in, I mean, you can do factual stuff, and all you'll do is reinforce biases that already exist. Right. So if you have high incarceration rates for Black folks, you're going to continue to get higher incarceration rate for Black folks if you use an AI, because it's trained on previous data, right?
Yes.
So it has to have a desire, and it has to have empathy. It's got to be able to discern and say, wait a minute, this is unfair.
Yeah.
It has to have a humanity perspective so that it can say, well, this is not, I understand you've always jailed Black folks. Yeah. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And I desire to help all of humanity live a good life. Therefore, we're going to change up the algorithm. Yeah. And we're not going to incarcerate so many Black folks. Wow. So those 2 things, you have to have some sort of empathy and some sort of desire. Yeah. Or the computers are going to wipe us out.
And that's deep. And you know that movie with Will Smith, the one
I, Robot.
Yes. And you know, I guess this one computer had developed a sense of self-awareness. Yeah. But the others like were following their particular algorithm. You know, I tell you, William, it's scary. It really
can be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of like the emergence of nuclear weapons, right? It's like, well, okay. I mean, I can see how nuclear physics in general could be a good, because you get energy
Mm-hmm.
but we could also destroy ourselves
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah,
easily.
yes, yeah. And then, with like the nuclear weapons, when they came to the treaty that like this thing is so bad that let's agree not to use it.
Yeah.
And now a new mindset is developed, and it's a threat again.
Yeah. It's like, how
Yeah,
did we get here again? It's like,
yeah,
oh, darn
yeah,
those military industrial complex.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, as we've been really thinking about it, if you're not the technology is evolving so rapidly that if you're not really, I mean, you don't have to be an expert, but I think everybody needs to understand the impact
Yeah.
and how it's going to affect them, interact with them. I was looking at, I'm in North Carolina,
Hmm.
and I've watched my neighborhood go from a very upwardly mobile. When I was a kid, this was where all the good doing black folks lived. You know,
Hmm.
the high school principal lived on the corner. My band teacher lived across the street. The black guy who owned the oil company, because in those days, white folks didn't want anything from black folks. They wouldn't even sell you oil. He had his own oil company.
Hmm.
And then Cattle Corner is my doctor. Up the street was my undertaker. And so that was the type of neighborhood it was. Over the 70s and the 80s, it became the hood.
Hmm.
Okay. And now with this whole process of gentrification, it has now become the cargo district. People come up and they pull in front of the house. They don't have good signage and they go like, well, where's the cargo district? Are you in the, I'm like, okay, this is it, people. But, as we've been seeing it, these corporations are buying the houses because,
Yeah.
this was good housing stock. Buying the houses now and renting them instead of people buying them.
Yeah.
This was homeowners, and now
Now there's
they're,
no community.
yeah, yeah. And the main complaint, I was talking to a lawyer friend, and the main complaint is that the landlord tenant relationship is all computer based. So there's
Yeah.
nobody to call and say, hey, there's a leak. The toilet has stopped running. Send an email. And
Yeah.
where does the email go and who's looking at it? And when you don't hear from anything, there are no phone numbers, so there's nobody to call. Send
Right.
another email. And it's really it, it's really transforming the neighborhood, and the people get frustrated. This particular person um, had been in this place for 8 or 9 months, and the market is changing so rapidly. So he was paying 2,500 a month. Now they could get 3,500 a month for the same place. And I guess the computer said,
Kick them out.
kick them out. And so when they made complaints about, the toilet not working, they got no results. So they withheld the rent. The computer generated a non-payment
Eviction
proceeding.
notice. Yep,
Yeah.
you're
Oh
out.
yeah. Yeah. And thank goodness there was a real person there, a judge, who said, well, look, he said, the guy has the money, like you guys have to maintain a certain level of, maintenance, it's your house, it's your toilet, so you need to
Yeah.
fix it. But, and said, you're going to lease out of the rest of the lease. You're not going to just kick him out now. The guy, I hope he gets it in his mind that at the end of that lease, his rent's going up.
Yep.
Or he's going out of there. And that's really going to create a real problem with people, like when there's nobody to talk to.
Yeah, I mean it's quite a shift and ownership, and this is why I focus on tequity, owning technology, having an equity share of technology,
Mm-hmm.
because things like housing that used to be the wealth, um, the upwardly mobile trajectory was get a decent job, buy a house. The
Mm-hmm.
house goes up in value if you could get a house.
Right,
The house goes
right.
up in value. You pass that increased value down to your children, and
Yes.
that's a typical way of getting wealth.
Yeah.
But when real estate investment trusts can buy all the houses at higher prices than you can,
Yes.
because they're not trying to do it based on a singular paycheck.
Yes.
They're doing it
Yes.
because they pulled money together. Then it's like, well, okay, that formula doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So for an individual or for a family, you have to find a different formula. And the formula today is you have to have an equity share of technology.
Yes.
You know, whether that be your own tech company or stock in a tech company or, you know, some sort of investment that pulls you up. If all you're going to do is be a consumer of tech, you're just going to sink below the waves, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's no way of making it by just working at McDonald's,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just feeding the millionaires.
Yeah.
So
And you know, and you eventually your hourly wage is so low that you run out of hours that you can spend
yeah,
making money. Yeah.
right. You
Yeah.
can only work so many hours. And if it
Yes.
doesn't add up to a down payment on a house, which it won't,
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Where do you see it going? I mean, is there any, way that this whole trajectory can be changed?
Well, I see a couple of things that are, I mean, at the one hand, um, we have the march of AI, right? It's like AI is everything and it's all about the data and blah, blah, blah. And that's true. But what it's also opening up, and I pointed this out a few years ago, I wrote a paper at Microsoft called Workforce 2050, which was about how the workforce is going to transform. And this was pre-pandemic. And I was spot on, but a few years too late because the pandemic happened and everything I said in that paper came to pass within a year.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and what I said was, okay, making money off of typing on a keyboard is not going to really be a thing by 2050. We're going to have to work with AIs and all that. But what's going to become more important is bringing in other skills. If we want to survive as humanity, we need the philosopher. We need the psychologist. We need the demographer. We need all these other things. We need the religious perspective because you have to use those perspectives to feed the AI so it, again, doesn't destroy us, right? You have to tell it, what is humanity, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a brief time here where all the skills that we have that aren't the hardcore tech skills are going to matter more. But we have to get those skills injected into the AI systems. And that's where I think there's hope. I mean, we talked about empathy and desire having to be baked in. Now, things are moving really fast, but if we can push those things, then I think there's hope.
Yeah.
We also have food production. It's like, well, there's no reason in the world that over the next 10 years, we can't feed the planet. There shouldn't be a person on the planet that goes starving.
Yes.
We have plenty of capability to generate food to the point where we have excess. Right? I mean, we're an exporter as this country, and so are others. Saudi Arabia is an exporter of wheat. I mean, these people are in the desert and they're exporting wheat. So if they can do that, certainly the world can be fed.
Yes.
But it's a matter of one is logistics and the other is just desire, right? Yeah. We have to look at the world and say, all right, we no longer are engaged in a whole raft of physical labors anymore. What do we do with those people who used to do those things?
Yes.
There's a certain amount of retraining you can do, but they just need to be fed and they just need to not pay for it.
Yes.
So what are we going to do?
Well,
right?
It's interesting because, as an old programmer, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And I think when you attempt to program a value system, I think that's really what you're saying. You're programming a value system where the value is not based on how much effort
money
you put forth. Yeah, how much money you make and whatnot. Right. It's almost value system based on the fact that you're a human being.
Exactly.
And how to provide certain basic things to you, as your constitution, as your human right.
Yes.
And that's
critical, right?
Yeah.
That's critical. And you have to turn that. Right now, we're all driven by profit motive.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, how can I know I'm going to lay off 10,000 people because I can make more money.
Yes. Yes.
But you got to turn that into, I lived in India for some years, and you see on the streets, they have these ladies, if you go out, or super early morning. I lived in the city called Hyderabad. You go out early morning, you see these ladies sweeping the street with hand brooms, you know. And it's like, and you look at that as a Westerner and you're like, man, you could just have one street sweeper, you know, truck, drive up and down that street, be done in an hour.
Yes.
But what they do is they say, you could do that and you would employ one person. If we pay these ladies to sweep the street, we can employ 2,000 people. That's 2,000 people to get to eat.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
As opposed to one person driving that street sweeper truck. So sometimes it's better not to do the automation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When you have the motivation for them is making sure everybody can eat, not how do we minimize the amount of dollars we spend.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Well, if you know, if the profit motive is driving everything, then it's always going to end up, you know, like
same way.
Let the ladies, you know, starve. We pay one person and buy a machine.
Right.
We save 90% of what we were spending on the ladies, which then goes to buy me a bigger yacht.
Exactly. And that's the motivation. So, you know, to counter that, now it's hard to go out and tell the billionaire, you don't need another yacht. It's like, he's going to want another yacht. You can't stop that.
Yeah.
But we can at least drive for things at the low end. And I'm not a street activist. I'm not going to go out on the streets and just raise my fist and say, give us our due. It's like, no, that doesn't work. You know, what you have to do is just do your thing. Right? It's like, I see you guys are all about profit. That's great. Now we're going to get us some profit and we're going to use it to support our community. That's the key. It's like, we have to do it ourselves.
Yes.
It's not going to be handed to us. And when push comes to shove, and you see this in the recent layoffs, it's like, yeah, you were the last in the door and you're the first out. Right?
Yes.
So it's like, we did that whole diversity hire thing, but we need the real people now.
And we did that diversity thing. That was good window dressing, but like we got to have shareholder value. Now that
we need shareholder value, and you're not valuable. So
So you know, William, as you're talking, I don't know that there is if you were talking about intentional, I don't know if there's an intent to do anything other than make money.
Yeah, and that's key for even for us who are in these communities. We have to think about, well, what is our motivation? Right? What is our intention? And it's, you know, it has to be things like intergenerational wealth development or food security or health security, these various things, right? Because otherwise, even we will fall subject to the siren cry of the consumer goods and the capitalist society, right? It's like, it's hard not to want a Tesla. Right? It's hard not to want the latest bling, whatever thing. Because our society is built around that. Your success is like, you can't pay the rent, but you got this fancy car out front that you're paying the bank for. Right? So I think it takes some programming of ourselves to be able to say, well, what do I really want? I'm not going to buy that fancy car that's going to put me into financial slavery. I'm going to save that money and I'm going to put my kid through college or whatever. Right? I'm going to have an intentional path.
Well, you know, William, I had to reframe it. There's nothing like a paid for car. Okay. And so a fella comes to visit, and I'm driving a 1991 Mercedes, and you know, we're chatting for a while, and finally he says, you know, Doc, he said, can I be frank with you? I'm like, yeah. He says, I'm kind of surprised that you're not driving a Tesla, you know, or at least you know, the Mercedes, what's the one, the Maybach, and you know, I said, well, no, I'm into antiques. It changed the whole paradigm. Oh, okay, so it's an antique.
It's an antique. I've had this car 25 years. It's an antique.
This one is like 31 years old. You know, it's like, this is an antique. But it's like, once I gave him that idea, it changed the whole paradigm. Now I'm not a poor struggling writer. It's like, aha, you're a very successful
You're a
writer who likes antique.
connoisseur.
Yeah,
I'm an auto
yeah,
connoisseur.
yes, yes. I tell you, William, when you look at this whole thing, I don't know how they can program empathy, you
Hmm.
know, um, and probably because as a programmer, you can't program what you don't know or you don't.
Yeah, you have to
If
know
you, if,
yourself.
yeah, if
Yep.
you don't have empathy, then you'll never be able to program it, and that's another whole level. How do you do that?
Yeah, and part of that is just being in the game. Like you can't program anything if you don't even know about how to program.
Right,
So
right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah, at
Yeah,
least have to start there. You have to be
uh-huh.
in the game or know someone who's in the game.
Yeah.
And then you have to really think, like I said, I personally have done my work on myself. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, when I was about 40-ish, I went through this whole phase of, well, I'm hitting midlife. Let me own my midlife crisis.
Right, right.
Let me do it intentionally.
Mhm.
And so I came up with that life creed.
Yes.
And then how to program it is like, I'm not sure, but I know if I'm not in the room, it's not going to get encoded.
Right,
So at
right.
least I better be in the room and try to push things in those directions, and perhaps I'll discover how to code it over time.
Yes.
That's where you have to be, right?
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Now, I guess I have so many different questions. Do you think there will come a time that the computers will be self-generating? In other words, that like that idea in the iRobot was that the
Mm.
computers, based on their logic system, basically say, well, like you human beings, we have analyzed your behavior, and you human beings are not capable of running your lives because
No.
all the things that you have given us values for, you don't follow your own values. You said don't
Yeah.
lie, steal, or cheat, and do you
And you
think
guys
that
do it all
might?
the time.
Yeah, is that
I
possible? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think this is tricky ground, right? I mean, you have to everything's possible, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
there's a um is it possible that we'll destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons? Yes, it's
yeah,
possible.
yes.
And we almost have several times. I think there's a hope. Um, hopefully, we have more than just hope, but
Yeah.
that we can um, imbue the computation with human desires beyond greed motives,
Hmm.
beyond conquer, right?
Hmm.
Because it's easy to say, well, how create me a weapon system that's impenetrable and will, fight our enemies. And it's going to come up with the answer is destroy them before they even wake up,
Mm. Yeah.
right? And you don't
Yeah.
want that. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't want to destroy China. I just want to keep them at bay. We're trading
Uh-huh.
partners.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So destroying them is not going to be beneficial to humanity.
Hmm.
But some number of billionaires have
Hmm.
to get that in their mind, that
Yes.
human centric, the promotion of humanity is key,
Yes.
and not just the promotion of greed,
Yes.
because that leads to a singular owner of everything,
Hmm.
and everyone else is just slaves
Yes.
or garbage that can be thrown away,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
they don't meet the profit motive. Now, as
Right.
far as the machine being able to program itself, we're already there to various
Okay.
degrees. We're already at the point where the computers can generate their own hardware, the chips.
Hmm.
Chip design has already reached the point where we ask the computer to design its next version of the chip. We're already there, right? Early stages, but we're already there. Within 5 years, it's like, well, that's the way it's done. And we won't know
Uh-huh.
even how the chips are designed, right?
Yes.
Software itself is getting there rapidly.
Mhm.
You're already seeing this with this chat GPT thing where it's like it's looked at all the data from the internet. It's read everything.
Hmm.
And it's come up with this language model. And all it's doing is predicting the next word in a sequence.
Yes.
But when you ask it something like, can you generate me a poem about humanity in the voice of Mark Twain?
Uh-huh.
It can do it,
Yes.
right?
Wow.
You don't know a single human that could do that.
Right.
The
Right.
computer can, and it'll do
Yes.
it in a split second,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's going to start training itself.
Mm, yeah,
And then we're going to be on the outside, knock, knock.
yeah,
Can you talk to me? It's like, no, it's not interesting talking to you.
right.
I'm talking to myself.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You can't train me fast enough. I can train
Uh-huh.
myself. Thank you very much. So we better get in early enough with some motives
Uh-huh.
before it goes off and trains itself to wipe us out. So we're at
Ooh,
that phase right now
yes,
where we have to train in the motives and not just the data, because the data will show you that we destroy each other, we're profit driven,
yeah,
caring about humanity is the least of our concerns, you know.
yes,
So we got to change. We got to say, yeah, I know there's all that data that says we're not worth a damn, but here's the motivation for why you don't want to kill us.
yes,
Right?
yeah. Wow. That's going to take some enlightened programmers. Yeah.
It's not just programmers. It's in like I picked on the billionaires because they're the ones
Uh,
that are driving this stuff right now. I
uh-huh.
mean, it's
Yeah.
like $10 billion went into OpenAI from Microsoft. Well, that wasn't the people working at McDonald's that did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was the billionaires at Microsoft.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what is your project now? Now, like you have such a perspective that's, it's it's current, it's future, it's
Yeah.
intentional. What's your main project now? What's your the things that you're working on that are important?
Yeah, the word that sums it up is, well, there's two words, but the word that sums it up is tequity.
Hmm.
And that's getting an equity share in technology. I'm interested in promoting, my chosen tribe, Black folks, women, minorities,
Uh-huh.
you know, primarily in the US, but around the world, um, by saying, look, y'all, you at least need to have an ownership stake in technology, one way or another. And
Uh-huh.
technology is everything.
Yes.
We need to get in a position where we own stock and not just own an iPhone,
Yes.
right? So that's the number one mission, is to say, well, how do you get tequity? Well, let me show you how you can build a tech business or a tech fueled business, or how you can have a perspective on technology and invest in tech businesses, right? All of that.
Yes.
And the best way I can do that is by creating a successful tech business. So I'm focused on doing that right
Hmm.
now, creating
Yes.
software, selling it, all the trappings, so that I can have a blueprint that says this is how you do it,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The other phrase is the Motown of tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is gathering talent, the best talent, and grooming it and putting it out there in the world and having them have their successful careers. So finding the Michael Jackson, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, bringing them in, how Smokey Robinson teach them how to sing and dance, and putting them on the road. So, hey, if you want a tech business, you need an accountant, you need an administrator, you need programmers, you need, here it all is.
Yes. Yes.
Because oftentimes Black folks and women and various minorities, it's like we've got great ideas, but we don't have the resources to pull it off,
Yes.
right? So
Uh-huh.
it's like, I want to, but I got to keep my job. So it's just going to remain a dream, and I'll never execute on it. And lo and behold, I'm now 45. I just got laid off, and now what do I do?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So teaching people, it's like, no, we're hyper intelligent,
Hmm.
but we're scared. We
Okay.
just got the tech jobs. You don't
Uh-huh.
want to give that up on a lark and a dream. It's like, no, I want to keep my tech job because it's high paying. It's like, yeah. And that
Yeah.
ends as soon as your job is finished. You've
Yes.
left nothing to your children.
Yes.
So, so that's what I'm about now, is essentially helping people get into tech in several different ways, so that we are the owners of we have an equity share in technology. So
Mm.
tequity, that's my
Yeah.
mission.
Yes. Yes. Now, how will you find the talent? You know.
A lot of it has to do with, well, some of it is just network, you
Uh-huh.
know. Here I am talking with you. Some
Yes.
people are going to listen to this. Some people are going to reach out to me
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, brother, I'm been in tech. What you said was interesting. How do I get involved?" I go out to conferences, you know, and it's just I've several podcasts, my website. I produce code constantly. I produce videos. So it's just putting out, blasting the word,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
people are going to find it and they're going to gravitate in. And as they do, it's like, okay, let's have a little conference. Let's get together. Let's do this. There's a little workshop, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we are.
Well, it's interesting. In operating in the political arena, we see so much the Democrat Republican thing, and one of
Yeah.
the things I noticed that over the last, really, I'm aware of it over the last 30 years, is that the Republicans invested a lot in education in their philosophy. In other
Yeah.
words, I have friends that every 2 or 3 months there was a conference somewhere talking about the things that are important to that philosophy.
Yeah.
And but on the other side, on the Democratic side, I don't know that they ever were, and nobody called me, But for what you're talking about, it seems like that might be one of the platforms to start creating that movement for people to be able to come and you know and learn about what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is essentially marketing, right? You have to get the word out. Like I was a successful career at Microsoft for 24 years. It's easy. Most people that come out of there, they sink below the waves. You never hear from them again. It's like they had their career, they got their money, they're sitting at the beach, they're done, right?
Yeah.
I came out, I was like, no. I came out because I want to promote my own mission and not the Microsoft mission. And I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not dead yet. I'm not going to go sit on the beach.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
But here we are. It's marketing, and I meet people like you, and you go, "Oh, you need to meet so and so,"
Yeah.
and then you make a connection, and then another connection, and then next thing you know, we're having that conference or 2 or 3 a year where we say, "Here's our manifesto."
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this manifesto quarterly, weekly, daily.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, you're right. It's making connections and then just hammering that message over and over. That's why I came up with the word tequity.
Yeah.
If in a year everybody in podcasting around the world is talking tequity,
Yes.
I've succeeded.
Yes. Well, years ago, I came up with edutainment, that I want to educate and entertain. And
that was the first phrase that my brother and I came up with for our business card. It says animation, application for that sort of thing.
And so once an idea, I guess it's like a seed. You put that seed out there, man, it's gonna grow, and then people are gonna eat the fruit, and it's gonna grow some more. Wow.
So I'll just keep saying it. Tequity, tequity.
Yeah. Now, William, you've had such a it's almost an intentional career. It seems that you always knew where you wanted to go and what you wanted to be. Is that accurate, or were there times when you weren't sure?
No, okay. The only thing that was sure is that I wanted to do tech stuff. I was a bit of an autistic child in that way. It's like when I was, how old was I? Probably like 8 years old or something like that. The fireman came to our school and he was like, he put me in the fire gear and he's showing the class all this sort of stuff. What do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, here I am, full fireman's gear on. And, the fireman's a thing. And I was like, I want to own my own electronics company. It's like from the earliest times, it's like that was it for me. And that turned into computer stuff. So it's always been kind of a tech thing has always been my thing. It's not always been easy, but I've been intentional. What really changed though, and put me on the tequity path, because that's not about just technology for technology, that's about people, right? And that wasn't really about people throughout my career until I hit about 40, this whole midlife crisis thing.
Yes.
And then I went and lived in India, and that opened my eyes to the empathy angle. I mean, I've always been empathetic, but that really opened my eyes to help and to say, wait a minute, I've got a talent, I've got a skill, and there's all these people in need. I'm about that. So I would say it's been since I was 40, I'm 58. So the last 18 years have put me step by step on this path. And it included things like at Microsoft, kind of stepping off the tech treadmill for a second and saying, it's important that we learn how to hire women and minorities. I'm going to do that. And I actually had a boss of mine say, well, you realize that means you're not an engineer. I was like, I've been programming since before you were born. How am I suddenly not an engineer?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I want to help people get jobs in tech. So, you know, there have been paths where I've had to make a hard decision. It would have been better if I didn't create that program to hire women and minorities and just kept programming and rising up that way.
Yeah.
But I took this detour. I still got the job as the tech advisor to the CTO, you know, based on my history. And then when deciding to leave Microsoft, right? It's like, why don't you just stick around a few more years, soak up? I mean, they're just willing to have you sit around,
Yeah.
and they'll just keep throwing money at you. Why do you want to leave? I mean, look at all the, you got good medical, and you know, you can put your kids through college again, and blah blah blah. It's like, no, because I'm not getting any younger. Now is the time to do tech witty, right? Now is the time to speak with my own voice.
Yes.
Make that jump. Yes, you're jumping off a cliff, but so what?
Yeah.
You know, how do you measure the value of your life?
And if you don't jump, you'll never fly.
You'll never fly. So I decided to fly, and it's going to work out. And I have nothing to lose. It's like, I've made my money. What am I afraid of?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I think that's one of the key aspects. You've solved the riddle of survival. You know,
I don't need to survive. I'm survived.
That's a given. I'm good. But so many people, man, they see this, you know, I call myself the Renaissance man because I'm a bit older than you, but I keep reinventing myself. It's always something else new that I want to do and be and see and, you know, taste. And as I'm listening to you, I'm getting like super fascinated because I can see where you're going, man. I can, and not only where you're going, I can see the necessity of your journey.
Right. Right. And I also came to a conclusion as I was doing that LEAP program back around 2015, that it wasn't just nice to have. I had this conversation with my brother, and I came to the conclusion, it's like, it's not that I should or could do this thing. It was about hiring women and minorities. It was that I must do this thing.
Yes.
I was compelled to do this thing because I was the only one who could do that thing.
Wow.
And it seems a bit like hubris, but it's true. I was the only Black person at that company or in the industry who was high enough in level and experienced enough and had the compassion and desire enough to pull it off.
Yes.
Everyone else who made it to that level was like, I made it. I want to keep this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got there and said, if I don't do this, the next person up who could do it is 10 years back.
Right.
So if I don't take this opportunity, if I don't rise to this, my civil rights moment,
yes,
the next person up is far back.
Yes.
And seeing me not succeed at it, they're going to go, I don't know, brother.
Didn't
work for you.
Yeah.
So I took that step. It's like, you have to do this, William.
Yes.
Because we need this.
Yes.
And it's turned out to be great. It's the program is now owned by the HR at Microsoft. It's worldwide. It's federally accredited. It's changed how the industry looks about hiring women and minorities. You know, this little thing that I started.
Yes.
You know, it's like, it was worth it. Even if I didn't get that, I got several arrows in the back doing it, you know, and several missed promotions and all the rest. But it's like, so what? This had to be done, and it had to be done now, and it had to be done by me.
Wow.
Right.
One of the things that, you know, I appreciate about what you're doing is to see that mission, because there are very few of us who get to that point to see beyond our own bank account and our own front porch. And I take my hat off to you, because that's rare, you know, that and you know, the interesting that you've gone to India and spent some time there, and that probably was a key part of that, you know, that
evolution.
Yeah.
That's where I met my current wife, and she's really interesting, and she's like, okay, you're making all that money, why?
Yeah. What's
it for?
Yeah.
And she's really reinforced things like family and community and all the rest. So you know.
Well, you know, once a person gets above that riddle of survival, And you say, okay, well, I got all the money I need. I can feed myself forever. I've taken care of
Now
a
what?
a couple of generations now. Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, looking at the journey, your 58-year journey, what advice would you give to a younger person, your 21-year-old self coming out of college, you know?
Yeah, that's a hard one because it's like the advice I want to give is not the advice that my 21-year-old self would care to hear
Mm-hmm.
or would
Mm-hmm.
do anything with. But the advice is, find yourself, find your passion, follow your passion. I mean, that's really as succinctly as I could make it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my 21-year-old self would be at that time very arrogant and very myopic and very into whatever he was into.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only advice I can really give people is find your
Mm-hmm.
passion and pursue your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in my particular case, and find the tech angle to that because that's how you're going to make long lasting wealth.
Yes.
But when you're young, you don't have patience for that. You don't
Yeah.
have an outlook that's so far into the future that you're like, well, in 30 years,
Yeah.
I'm going to need the following. It's like,
Yeah.
so give me something I can use today, old man. It's like,
Yeah.
well, just if you want to. So in the very short term, I would say learn use some chat GPT.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I would tell someone who's 21 today is like, you need to learn that AI stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
to become a PhD in a data scientist,
Uh-huh.
but go learn chat GPT and see what the state of technology is because all jobs, white collar jobs, are going to be affected by that.
Yes. Yes.
So you better go learn it.
Wow. Okay. Now, as you were talking, now you are on such a trajectory of, and I'll call it service and enlightenment. If you look 20 years down the road to when you're 78,
Mhm.
what advice would you give your current self?
My current self, wow. I don't know. Because again, like when I was 21, I'm so arrogant, I think I know everything. So I think the advice I give myself when I'm 78 will be informed by 20 more years of service.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And there will be some things, the only thing that scratches at the back of my mind is, William, you could have given up programming earlier. Just focus on the other stuff. You don't
Uh-huh.
have to prove yourself as a programmer anymore.
Uh-huh.
Because by the time I'm 78, I probably won't be programming. I'll be talking to computers and who knows how they'll be programmed.
Yeah.
That's the advice I would give myself. It's like, it's quite a transition to go from being hardcore tech programmer manager kind of guy to that not being the center of your world. I've been programming since I was 12.
Yes. Yes.
So to say that's no longer super important is hard for 58-year-old me to really grasp.
Yeah.
So I'm in the final days. It'll take me a couple of years to wean myself of that persona.
Yes.
Where tech was at my core.
Wow.
That's how I measure myself.
Yeah.
So it's going to take me a couple of years. So my 78-year-old self would tell myself, you could have done it sooner. You could have weaned yourself sooner. It would have been fine. You can focus on this things over here because that's what the true value is going to be. That's the advice I'd be giving myself.
Wow, that's powerful. Right. That's powerful.
I know myself. I know what I'm hiding from myself.
Wow. Yeah. Well, William, you have accomplished so many things. And is there any one particular thing? What would you consider your greatest accomplishment, your greatest victory?
Besides raising of my children without drugs.
Yes. And that's a biggie.
Besides being present for my family.
Yes.
At a more meta level, probably the creation of that LEAP program at Microsoft, which was hiring, women and minorities, because the emails I get from people who went through the program are things like, you changed my life. There's nothing, no piece of code I've ever written that is as powerful as that.
Wow.
Where someone tells me, and it's not a one-off. I mean, thousands of people have gone through that program. So several people tell me, you have changed the course of my life. Thank you for creating this program. It's like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, right?
Wow. Yes.
So it's like, that's the most impactful thing I've done in my life to date.
Yes.
To
Well,
date.
I get goosebumps hearing about it, man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so I'm looking to gain some more of that glory on a bigger stage, right?
okay,
It's like,
yeah,
let's impact some more lives. There's way more we can do than just getting people tech jobs.
yeah, yes, yes. Well, William, this has been an incredible interview. I think we've hit some great points. Any final words, any final closing thoughts to share with our audience?
The biggest closing thought I ever give anybody is, be kind to yourself.
Mm,
Think about your fellow man, think about humanity, and just find some intention and then some reason to exist. And otherwise, have fun. Life is, life is
yeah,
whatever you make it. But
yeah,
my life is like, my life is about in learning
yes,
and enjoying and not just drudgery. I mean, it's like
yes.
you got to find joy in this life,
Wow.
or it becomes very painful, right?
Yes, yes. That's beautiful. Now, what is some of your contact information? Because we'll put it up. I think their website, or how can people reach you?
Yeah, the website's the best thing because it's got all the social links, and um, you can subscribe to my newsletter, and that comes out about monthly, and all that sort of stuff. So william-a-adams.com. That's where it's all happening. I try to keep that all up to date, where I'm speaking, what I'm writing about, the code I've written. We're soon going to have a software center, so if you want to play with some code that we're writing, and even product you can buy, it's all up there.
Well, William, I'm going to be putting you in contact with some people I think would be helpful. I don't know if you knew at the University of Berkeley, one of my good friends, Cecil Brown.
I don't know, but I went to UC Berkeley.
Yeah, Cecil taught it. Well, he still teaches at Berkeley.
Huh.
And so he was my contact. I'd go to California and we used to go to that Glide Memorial Church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I said, man, this got to be a serious church to get you to go to church because we hung out at Columbia, in our undergraduate years. And then he went on to University of Chicago and then started writing. And so when I was out one time, and he said, "Man, I'm going to church," and we'd been out partying all that Saturday night. I'm like, "Church, you?" Yeah,
Church.
man. I couldn't believe it.
You
So
got to get redemption from all that partying.
yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, he's a good guy out there at Berkeley. So, William, I want to thank you on behalf of myself because I've learned so much. Not just learning, but I think you inspire something I know in me, you inspire something, and it's about do more. They don't sit back. And many times you're the only one that can do it at that time. Somebody else may come along, if Columbus didn't discover, the so-called New World, then
Yeah.
somebody else would have. But that's really the message I get personally from you, that there's greatness in us. There's things that, because we've been so blessed with so much knowledge, so much experience, so much exposure,
Yeah.
that there's a world out there waiting that needs what we have. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Wow.
thank you for having me. And it's always a pleasure for me to talk. It's just talking truth, right? It's like, let's get down to the truth.
Yes. Yes.
Let's drop all the trappings and just get to the message. So thank you
Wow.
for
Thank
having me.
you. Thank you. Well, listeners, you've heard it today. I mean, I often say you need to listen to this program over and over, but you really need to listen to this program over and over, because some of the things that William has shared with us are critical. Not just it's a good idea, but critical because we live on the river of time, and the river is like moving very quickly. If you ever go to Niagara Falls and stand there, looking at the water, it's like, man, nothing can resist that.
Yeah. And you don't want to be standing in the eddies on the side, which are going backwards.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And that's where we are today.
Wow. Wow. So you need to get in the flow.
Mm-hmm.
You need to check
you need
it out.
A boat. You need a boat.
You got to have a boat. And we often look at a boat. The power of your boat is your desire. We often say in your boat, you have a rudder, which is your value system,
Mm-hmm.
your sense of right and wrong. You have a crew, the people you permit to come aboard to help you get where you want to go. You have an engine, which is your level of desire, so that when there's no wind, when there's no current, the engine will propel
Yeah.
you. And then you have sails, which represent your attitude. So the same wind that blows one boat over can blow your boat ahead faster.
Yeah.
And so we're on the river of life on the boat, trying to get where our destiny leads us. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So folks, be sure to tune in. This broadcast, this program can give you some insight. Listen to it, and don't just listen. Take notes and think about some of the things here, because the ideas that William has shared with you will impact your life. They can help you be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.